Friends, it's great to be with you and to talk about missional communities. Really, as we look at the early church and see how God has spread this message of his good news to the nations, we want to continue to do that. And we want to look at the scriptures and how we do that. So I'm here with my friend Todd Morr, and we're going to be sharing with you some really foundational tools of how you can see missional communities happen in your church, in your context. And really, we want to pray that we would go back to the scriptures and see how the early church lived out the mission of God as family, as they lived it out around food, and as they walked together and did life together. So welcome to this conversation, and I'm excited to introduce you to Todd today. And we got to acknowledge the reality of what the church looks like today, where the church is not seeing fruit and where some things are just not really going forward. And we want to acknowledge that God is also doing things and where the future's not just headed, but as we go back to the scriptures, we need to get back to what the church looks like. And so what's that been like for you to see some of those expressions of the church?
Yeah. I get to work with churches in a lot of different contexts, and I'd say especially in the Western world, or Western influenced world, which would also probably include Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, South America, some of those places. I mean, there is some growth in the church, but not very significant in many places. What we would call conversion growth, new believers, new disciples.
Right.
Churches experience some transfer growth for different reasons, people moving and things happening. But in terms of conversion growth, not. I don't think we see that significantly happening in too many places.
Yeah. When you say conversion growth, you're talking about people who are lost, not church transfer, not people just coming over, but actually people hearing the gospel for the first time, probably maybe the first believer in their family, and really seeing their whole community transformed. And so as we consider the uniqueness of that, we go back to the scriptures and we look at how they were living in that way. We're going to go back to seeing how that looked. And so we're going to be looking at 4 different topics today, really, and breaking those down. But within those 4 different sections, what's kind of your heart behind why you want to have this conversation? And what does it look like for us to encourage people towards missional communities?
I think Jesus, we see him speak about it often, pray for it often, modeling it with his life, just his deep passion, his deep heart for the lost, for those outside the church.
Right.
And so that compels me, that convicts me often to say there's a lot of lost people around us, hurting, broken, sad, experiencing anxiety, depression, just many different forms of brokenness.
Right.
And I believe Jesus desires to meet them, bring healing, bring redemption, but we know that he desires to do that through us, through his disciples, through his sons and daughters.
Right.
And so my passion is just to see churches increasingly realize that Jesus has died for that. He's died for that, and he has sent us for that purpose, to see the lost invited into his family. So we see, again, as he was departing from his earthly ministry, we see him giving us this very clear command to go, and to not just go to faraway places, but it could mean going next door, going to the next cubicle at work, but going to the lost around us, the broken around us, to build trust, become friends as he did, and to try and introduce them to Jesus.
As we want to stay kind of rooted in the scriptures with that, I'm just going to read part of the Great Commission. It's going to frame some of our conversation. As you said, we need to go and make disciples. But as we think of that in Matthew 28, so wherever you are watching this, whenever you're watching this, you can track with us in these scriptures as well. In Matthew 28:18 says, "And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." Again, he's called us to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe all I've commanded you. And a lot of that looked like how they did life together.
Yeah.
It wasn't just head knowledge. It wasn't just spiritual information. And it wasn't just spiritual formation, which is great. We want to see people know how to be spiritually formed. But there's also this missional formation, this kind of next step of what does it look like to be formed for the mission of God.
Yeah.
And so as we look at these different topics, and as you watch these videos, we'll be starting out with missional foundations of how we want to lay the foundation to work as a community for Christ together.
Yeah. I love what you read there, and I think an important thing for the church today is to realize that wasn't just meant for them.
Right.
Sometimes that's taught. That was a unique time and a unique command, or, and I believe Jesus intended for us today.
Right.
to do that kind of going. And then just after that, he says something somewhat similar, maybe a little more specific in Acts 1:8, when he says, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses." So you'll be my witnesses, my disciple makers, my missionaries. You will do that. And I love this, telling people about me everywhere.
Yeah.
Telling people about me everywhere. In Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. But that's not a back there idea, long ago idea. That's for today. That we would be those kinds of witnesses, again, in our Jerusalem, so our neighborhood, our city, and that it would ripple out from there to other cities and then to other parts of the world.
Right.